Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a viewer submitted replay. This is the Ram 2 and it's being driven by Jellodius. Now this is a slightly older replay, it's from 090, but I decided to pick this out partly because it's a pretty good game. It shows off what the Ram 2 can do with the right set of circumstances. But it also is on Swamp, and Swamp has been one of the more problematic maps for a while now. There are some maps in the game, I mean, map balance is an ongoing thing because the way people play on maps can change over time, the meta as it's called. It can take a while to evolve, and Swamp has evolved to a point where, and you know, it's been a while getting here, but it can end up in quite a lot of stalemates and just very drawn out games, sometimes outright draws. And it's to the point where Wargaming have officially acknowledged that it's problematic. There are more draws on this map than there should be. Now, just the map design itself is a problem, but it's extremely exacerbated when there are, especially higher tier, in particular artillery in play. Several artillery can really lock down this map, just make it into a 15-minute snooze fest. You move, you die, and so nobody wants to move and die. And then it's a draw. And I actually had a day, last week it would have been at this point, but 3 draws in one day, which is unusual to have that many draws in one day, but 2 of them were on this map. Games on this map just tend to be, even if it's a win or a loss, it tends to be drawn out. And you can even sometimes have situations where it looks like you're losing, but the nature of the map is that you can retreat to positions where it's extremely hard to wiggle a team out from, and at that point you win. Or you draw it out. It's not a particularly great map. Anyway, enough about the map. Let's have a bit about the Ram 2 instead. Now, this is a Tier 5 premium American vehicle, although actually it runs on maple syrup. It's actually Canadian. This was basically an American chassis, and it's kind of, I think it's the Lee chassis, or it might be the, was it the Sherman? I can't remember. It's an existing chassis that was adapted by I'm pretty sure it was the Canadian, like the locomotive industry. Like a lot of the heavy industries in World War II of various countries, including in the UK, the people that made trains were quite well suited to them going and making tanks because they have experience with working with, large amounts of metal and building big heavy metal things, so therefore it makes sense that they would. Whereas the shipbuilders were busy building more ships because those are quite important also. But basically what it is, it's a British gun on an American hull, and maybe that's appropriate for it being a Canadian machine, I don't know. Maybe I've just lost all my Canadian subscribers by saying that, but it's that very quick 6-pounder gun on a medium tank chassis, and it doesn't get limited matchmaking. Now that's fine when you're top tier. When you're top tier, this combination, this vehicle, it's not especially fast. The gun, it's all about the DPM, it's all about the British rate of fire. So you need to really get the drop on somebody to work them over with that rate of fire to get the most out of this. But it doesn't, it's not the slowest vehicle, but it's really not the fastest. You can use this same gun pretty much on the M7 medium tank that it's just a regular American Tier 5 medium tank, and it works better on that machine just because that's a faster machine. But that also gets a 76mm to choose from, which I think a lot of people would go for instead. But the Ram, well, as you can see, it moves okay, but it's not gonna especially win any speed contests. And you get this gun on 3 Tier 5 premium tanks, the Matilda Black Prince, the Churchill 3, and this thing, and they both get medium matchmaking, but they're also both much slower machines. So, the actual match, it has worked out as a lot of these matches do. The people that push across initially, they all die, and in this case it was more than half of Jellodius' team. He's still got full health. He's actually done a little bit of damage himself so far, but him and his teammates were able to clean up the enemies that try to do the same thing on the other side. Now, they haven't really watched that flank. There was that one Panzer III-4 who was ensconced in that position, but he wasn't really in a place to spot the middle at all. There weren't any hidden tank destroyers, so he was actually able to get across, and he's now in a position to get lots of flanking fire on these people, basically, including their 2 remaining heavy tanks. Now, the Churchill has crossed, but there's the T1 Heavy, and the sides and rear of a T1 Heavy are just, so good for this gun. Now, they know he's here. He's obviously taking a bit of fire, so he's trying to use the terrain, and he makes a little bit of a gaff here. He's quite eager to get the sides and rear of this T1 heavy and pulls out way too far. There's that Churchill. And the T1 obviously has taken notice of him as well, but he just, at this point, this is the downside of these high DPM, high rate of fire guns, is that you need to sit there and be exposed to fire to actually make the full use of that. Now that 6-pounder gun, I mean, he traded not much of his health to get that T1 heavy, and it's a little bit better at the lower tiers because people will be maybe a bit less likely to have really good crews. But as you can see, the Churchill 3 there also giving him some fire. But he was able to, you know, without taking too much damage, and because that T1 heavy muffed some of his shots, he was just absolutely able to wreck that guy. So when you're top tier, you can do stuff like this, and it's pretty good. But when you're bottom tier, suddenly that 6-pounder gun is a lot more lackluster. You don't have the speed to make it work like you can with the M7 medium, and you don't really have the armor. The hit points on this vehicle is alright, you know, it's 610 hit points on a tier 5 medium, it's pretty decent. But your armor's not going to count for much, your speed's not going to count for that much, and overall, you don't see many of these things on the battlefield, I think, because of that matchmaking specifically. So he's taking out that Covenanter that might have tried to get behind his rear. That Panzer III-4 still in E2. It's down to him, an 82 and a Birch gun, and the Birch gun's about to die, it looks like. So he's going to go support this Churchill 3. The 82 should be reasonably proof against that guy, because again, it's this same gun. It's a 6-pounder. And you have to be, with the Churchills anyway, and this thing, and what else gets the 6-pounder? I don't know, anything with a 6-pounder gun, it's not a particularly accurate gun. If you can get the flat side of an enemy tank, it's fine. But if you're having to aim for weak spots to penetrate them reliably over and over, as the 82, you know, as you'd have to do with the 82, it's a bit more difficult. And again, so you just demolish that guy with that rate of fire. It was another 559 hit points in the bank, and it looks like the Panzer II-G is just trying to cap, and who can blame him? So, you can get some pretty good results with this thing when you're top tier, and you probably are only ever going to see replays of this when it's top tier, because getting it to perform anywhere near as well when you're in a tier 7 battle, even in a tier 6 battle, you can struggle a bit. Yeah, so it's not bad, but I think it's the limited matchmaking that really kills the popularity of this thing. However, it's got its fans, most tanks do, and I think it's not a bad tank myself. I do play it from time to time. It's just that lack of limited matchmaking, and you can compare it to something like the T25, for instance, which doesn't turn as well, but it's a better gun, I think I'm right in saying, better top speed. And the T25 I would take in preference to this. So there's the Panzer II-G, he's already done him some damage, and bit of replay there, frame rate drop. But yeah, just boop, frames the guy to death. The only damage he actually takes from that is the shots that the Panzer II-G was firing. And the Panzer II-G gets a really nice gun, it's got 95 average pen. So that's kill number 7. We're actually going to speed things up a little bit here. That Panzer III-4, well, we know where he was last spotted. He might still be there, he might not. If he was camping there the entire game and didn't move at any point, chances are he's not the best player, but we'll see. Enemy arty has also not really been an issue, although did try to take a pot shot at Jellodius when he was decapping at the end there. And the 82 is still alive, so that's a big asset as well. Although the 82 much more vulnerable to arty, but it's only a tier 4 arty, so it's probably going to be an annoyance at most. So there's the Panzer III-4, who, as it turned out, was on very low hit points indeed. Jellodius turns, but no, he's got it, so that's fine. However, there's still one more chance to get a Radley-Walters, because enemy arty's left alive, and given that he's competing against an 82 to get this last bit of damage, I suspect he's going to be fine. So we know where enemy arty is likely to be. He makes his way up towards the cap. And he's not really, he's just doing it through the open, he's not really using the terrain on either side, but when there's one arty left, who, as it turns out, was there the whole time, it didn't really matter that much. So there we go. He's going to easily kill this guy before the he can reload. And there it is. 2.9k damage and a Radley-Walters medal. So let's take a look at the scores on that. That was an ace mastery, Radley-Walters, a defender, a high caliber, and of course a top gun to go with the Radley-Walters. He was easily the top place on his team, 2.9k damage. I almost said 2.9k thousand damage there, because, you know, me reasons. And with 8 kills, that got him 1556 base XP, which is a pretty impressive result when you're top tier. He really did carry that team quite hard. The people that all pressed across the south, when you cross that bridge and you are charging into pretty good defensive positions. And the thing about Swamp is that it's symmetrical for both sides in a bad way. There are maps which have unbalanced spawns, and that's been an issue with maps in the past, and they've taken them away and fixed them. And the thing with this map is that it's not that the spawns are unbalanced, it's that the whole map it kind of screws both teams equally, basically. In order to get a bunch of kills, you need to get people who are playing the map badly to cross those bridges, to be incautious, to go out in the open. And it can then, after that point, half the team on each side is dead, and everyone suddenly gets very cautious, and it all slows down immensely. But in that case, it wasn't really an issue. It was a bit more fluid, and the battle still took just over 10 minutes. Even so, but that's one of the less frustrating matches on Swamp that I've seen people have, and that I've had myself. So it's a pretty good result, all things considered. And when you're doing as much damage as the rest of the team put together, then you really can consider that to have been a hard carry. So yeah, top tier, that's £6. If you can get the drop on people, if you can put the rate of fire to its best use, then you can really absolutely dominate a match if you get lucky. He was lucky in some places there. There were a couple of shots that could have damaged him that didn't. They went in his tracks, or they managed to ping off his armor at an extreme angle. But even so, he kept his head for most of that. He did make one. He was a bit concentrated too much maybe on getting that T1 heavy, fluffed a couple of the shots, went out a bit too far, took a little bit too much damage there, but it turned out not to matter. It might have come down to a much more close situation, but as it was, with himself and the Mk.II left alive, even though the Mk.II didn't do much, the Mk.II had 338 damage, 2 kills, and that was enough for 3rd place on the team. That was how good the rest of his team was. In fact, he probably had as much XP as like the next, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 people combined. It was a bit ridiculous, but yeah, that was just a good match all round for Jellodius, and it just shows you that the Ram 2, although it's very circumstantial, if you get the right circumstances, you can do really well. And if you like the gameplay of the Churchill or the Matilda Black Prince, but you think they're just too slow, then the Ram 2 is maybe not a bad choice to pick up on, sale or something like that. But it does have that fly in the ointment of that it just gets regular matchmaking, and for a lot of people that does seem to be the deal breaker. So if you enjoyed this replay, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.